It's interesting because you're not going to go into a board meeting and somebody's going to say something like, hey, how on the marketing front, how is the brand development going? Right. How is our work in internal culture and our change transformation? They're going to come in and they're going to say, well, how are we doing on this quarter's quota? And what does next quarter look like? Right. That's the focus. When you do that, there's another balancing act I want to ask you about because you talked about clear segmentation, right? And there's always a tendency to define, and that's defining our segments, defining our ideal customer profile, right? And we know if we bring in our ideal customer profile, those are the ones that we're best suited and resourced to serve. They're the ones that are going to churn the less. They're going to take less resources to facilitate, but there's always the desire and the lure of bringing in deals that are outside of that segmentation, outside of that ideal customer profile, because we've got a quota to hit, right? How do you think about that balance? Because short term, it helps in the quota. Long term, it never helps in the development of the business.
I think it can be a slippery slope and you have to be really, really careful. And I think, depending upon the business and the organization, for early startups or organizations that are in their first couple of rounds of seed funding, it could be really difficult to say no to revenue that's coming in when you desperately need it in, you need that new logo or that new piece of business to be able to go out there and promote. It takes a lot of discipline to really focus on your core business and be successful at that. For larger organizations, it's a little bit easier to do. You might have larger budget, larger P&L, where maybe you can absorb a little, you can experiment to see if, let's try this under one or two contracts and see if our business can absorb this and if it makes sense for a longer term play. My advice would be to really be disciplined about your business, where your core strengths are. Really try to understand who your ideal customer profile is and who your buyer is, and really position your organization to the strengths that you have and that you offer in the market, because pivoting too soon to something that you're not 100% sure of for short-term gain is going to suck a lot of your people resources that in an early startup or early seed company is like your people are your resources and are everything. So really keep your team and your strategy focused on your core business and your core disciplines and serve your customers and your prospects as best as possible in what is your real strength, and not try to just go after every shiny object that appears.